So once again, hello, welcome back. Those of you that can make it on time, those of you that are watching on video, I know not everyone can make it to class every day, so keep working at it, keep going. We are in week 5 of Hired Labs Coding Bootcamp out of 6, so we're almost done. We're almost there. I know it's like we're going real fast. We're flying through this stuff. I want to reiterate the point that this is laid out in 6 weeks to put some time around it, but this is an ongoing practice. And at the end of the 6 weeks, you're not just out the door and you're done. If you still work on these things, this is a self-paced course. If you go beyond 6 weeks, that's fine. You can keep reaching out with questions, keep building on this thing. You'll still have access to the videos and the documentation, whatever you need to really hammer this home and learn it. The idea is just keep going at whatever pace you can go, right? So glad we're here, ready to move into day 10, where we're going to continue building the app that we've been working on, our to-do list application that's on our website. And we're going to talk today about the concept of namespace, and we're going to continue implementing our CRUD operations. Namespace as a concept, as an idea, is, as we're going to implement it, is something that's going to prevent conflicts in the naming of URLs. And it'll be a lot easier to explain this idea as we get our hands on it and show what it is as we go through it. It's in the documentation I sent out earlier. If anyone got a chance to look at that, that's cool. If not, don't worry. We'll go through it today like we normally do. So the conceptual stuff that we're going to talk about is not necessarily about that. We're going to talk about a few other things very briefly before we get hands-on. First of which, we're just going to remind ourselves what we're talking about when we talk about CRUD operations, right? It's the 4 things that we can do with pretty much every application: it's create, read, update, or delete some sort of records in a database. Again, SQL at the top of this slide is put with an asterisk because this is not necessarily stuff with SQL. We are using a SQL interaction with a relational database, but this is kind of the way we talk about all applications and the stuff that you interact with as a user. You can create things, read them, update, and delete them. Last time we implemented read, where we pulled things out of a database and presented to our screen on our page. Today, we're going to implement the create and give our users a button to press that they can create their own to-do list items. So we're going to need to create a form and a button and the interactions that go behind that form to process the information. So it could be a little bit more than what we did with read, but it'll be the same process we followed before with creating a view, mapping URL, doing something, creating a template if we don't have one, and then navigation to it. So those 4 steps we're going to walk through on all of these CRUD operations. And before we dive into the one we're going to do today, I want to talk a little bit about terminology, a couple of things that are important to know for what we're going to do today specifically, and then also just sort of moving forward for general understanding, good starting place, disambiguating some terms, and some places you may want to go for expanding and going after this course. If you feel you've mastered these things, or you want to look for sort of like what's next, these are some of those things that I want to touch on real quick. So this chart picture that we've got here is showing the HTTP interaction that we've already been going through once again in a slightly different way. So left to right, we got the left side. There's a user accessing the internet through a browser of some sort, like Chrome or Safari or whatever. DuckDuckGo, doesn't matter. And it's going to send a request through this little wrench and gear thing is our application that we're writing. That's where we sit. And then there's this API, these little arrows going in and out. We're going to talk about that here in a second. This is sort of the concept thing that I want to touch on a little bit. There's an arrow that points back to the back-end systems, the server and things like that. And then there's a response that's sent back on the other side. So we've already been doing this. What I wanted to highlight specifically, though, is in this whole picture, this HTTP with this requests will have what's called a method. And we've seen one method already, most likely. We've probably seen both of them, but we haven't really talked about them. Today, we're going to talk explicitly about one of them. And we're going to see another one a lot more often. So I want to make sure we're clear on what it is we're talking about when we see these terms, right? So the first method, the one that we're going to be using today explicitly, is the post method. And in terms of HTTP, and if you recall, the P in HTTP is just protocol. So it's the way these things are done. That's the create. The term for create is post in HTTP. So when we create a record, we use the post method. The get method is one that we've been using this entire time thus far. It's just getting information. So it's the request comes in to a URL and it just says get the information that's at that URL. And again, URL, the uniform resource locator, the address at which a file is located in your file structure. So it's just files and directories. Get just says go get that file at this directory. Post is going to be the one that creates it. And then after that, the other 2 methods are, there's more for update. We're not going to get super deep into put which is one way of updating records, and delete, which is self-explanatory and matches our CRUD words. We're not going to get explicit with writing put, but post we will explicitly use a couple of times. So I want to make sure we're clear on what that means as we go forward. And then API is something I want to kind of talk about separately. Any questions about this? Should be fairly straightforward, but any questions about what we're talking about, what we're highlighting here with the post specifically, as far as request methods go? Good on that? Nice. So APIs listed here. First of all, anybody know what API stands for? I know it's a fairly common term at this point. Anybody know what that means? What it stands for? So it stands for Application Programming Interface. And it's not really helpful to know what that means, actually. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on trying to define that really detailed. I want to get the concept down of this, though. It's really just another software system out there that you can send information to or get information from. So one example that we're going to walk through here is like, let's say on your website, you wanted to put a map function of some sort. Google, you may have heard of this company, it's a little company out here in California, does maps really well. And so instead of making your own map system by yourself and trying to tap into GPS systems and all that kind of stuff, you can just send a request to Google through the same HTTP method that we're talking about here, through their API, what's called an API. And if you format it the right way and you send them a request and you say, hey, this is the information I want, they'll send you back the information you need and you can put that in your application. So users of your application could come to your site and your site will have Google functionality in it through an API. So that's kind of where these fit in. We'll talk a little bit more about that here specifically on sort of what sort of APIs you might see. And I really want to treat this part, be very clear for folks who are feeling that this course is kind of like right on pace for them and are looking for what's next. This is definitely a thing that you can use to expand the functionality of your site a lot with just a very little bit of code. APIs are great to get a handle on. If you're a very, very true beginner and you're kind of struggling to keep up with this, you feel a little bit behind, this is more to show you what these terms are and not get sidetracked by them when you're looking in documentation, because it can be kind of confusing. You may get the feeling like I need to understand this deeper than you need to. I'm going to try to show the really relevant parts about APIs when you see them, what they mean and how you might want to grab them and use them. So generally speaking, there's two big API flavors you're going to see out there. REST, which is a really common one now, and SOAP. We're not going to talk about what these stand for. It doesn't really matter. REST, again, is one you're going to see very frequently. It may also come with a lowercase FUL at the bottom as a RESTful API. Like some people might say, we have a RESTful API, right? What they're saying when they say that is they have a system that is protocol agnostic, so it doesn't matter if it's HTTP or some other protocol that's being used. The data format is agnostic. So it doesn't matter what data format you use. That's really nice about this. That's why it's popular. More specifically, though, it allows JSON. Does anybody remember when we talked about JSON? We've talked about this once before. Do you remember what this was, what it is, and when we talked about it? That was a whole bunch of questions stacked at once.
That's your JavaScript, correct?
Yes, JSON, yeah. So it stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it is a key value pair in curly brackets, which is, what do we call that in Python? What data type is that?
The curly brackets, was that the reference to Django?
Well, that's the front end tags have curly brackets. Yeah, but what data type has key value pairs in Python? More importantly than the curly brackets. I mean, it's curly brackets too, but key value pairs are the thing to remember. What data type has that? Remember?
Is it the dictionary?
Yes, dictionaries, key value pairs. So
Yeah.
so JSON is going to look like a Python dictionary. It's going to be key value pairs separated by a colon, just like you're used to in Python. And REST APIs allow that information transfer in a JSON object. It also allows XML because, again, the data format doesn't matter. XML is also a really frequent internet format, a lot like HTML, but it's got a lot more brackets and a lot more going on. Kind of annoying. So if you have the choice, a lot of people are going to use JSON. Doesn't matter what system they're using. JSON is really widely available. So it's nice to be able to have that, and you'll see it frequently. So people will say, hey, we got a REST API. The key thing to take away here is to know that it's written in, that's available information in JSON, and you know what a JSON, like you know how to deal with JSON. because you can deal with Python dictionaries. It's the same way. You get information out by referencing the key, and it gives you the value, right? This other framework of APIs, the SOAP framework, doesn't really, or architecture rather, doesn't, again, not important what it means. It's used a lot for things like email protocols and stuff like that, but it doesn't really matter what protocol it uses. It has a stricter data format though, which is why it's less popular. And it does not allow JSON, which again, JSON is ubiquitous. It's all over the place. So that is one of the things that makes SOAP a little bit less of something you'll run into. You see REST a lot more often. And it requires XML. Again, XML is kind of a pain. So this restriction makes it a little bit annoying. Any general questions about this, about APIs? That's about all I wanted to cover on it. Any questions about that? Right. So I'm going to go over and show real quick, kind of cement this a little bit on not just what it is, but where you might use it and how you would use it, and show you that it is, again, something that you do know already. You just may not think, you may think like, oh, this is way too confusing. It's really not. This is exactly the same patterns we've been using to plug this stuff into your code. Is going to be what we did with like the JavaScript. It's going to be basically the same stuff, but we could do it in Python. So I'm going to show you where we can get those things. So I'm going to get out of these slides. I'm going to go over just to Google's. Again, we talked about Google Maps as an example. I looked this up beforehand, but it's not anything special. You just type in Google API, Map API, Python, and you'll come basically to the same place. What I wanted to show you is that what they have in their documentation will be a way that you reference it, which should be a fairly similar, HTTPS reference, and then there'll be some mention of a key, which, you can get these API keys from. That's how they charge you for things by either the number of requests that you send, or if it's something like ChatGPT or a text generative thing where it's processing text, it might charge you by the number of what they call tokens, so words that you send in your request. But that's usually the key, is how they charge you for those sorts of things. So an API request usually comes with an API key, and that's something you're responsible for setting up and sending along with the API request. But then the response will come back in JSON. And so this documentation shows an example of what the JSON object looks like as a response for the geocoding. This is what this is doing. So if we send the address, Google's address, it's going to come back with this object that has, here's the first key, and the value is a list. So we know that that's 0 indexed. It's ordered every time. The first object in it is, again, a dictionary, so it's key value pairs. It has this address components with a lat long. There's a short name, right? Long name, short name, all these different things about it, right? Here's the lat long. Sorry, here's the lat long for it down here at the bottom in another entry. And so this is showing what comes back once you send the request. This is what the response has. So if you want this information, if you need it in some way, this is what you're going to get when you send the request. Now, further, if you dig in the documentation, there'll be a link to the Google Maps Service Python, what's called client. The Python client is just what Google calls it. And this will show you how to interact with that API specifically, where to put it in your code, how to write the code that fits it. And I'm going to show you this. This is on GitHub. We're going to talk more about GitHub next week if you're not familiar with it. But I'm going to scroll down a little bit and skip some of these things. It's definitely worth reading on anything that you check out. But I'm going to skip down to installation. And what I really want to highlight here is that this should be familiar. So we got pip install, which is the same thing we did with our packages inside of our virtual environment. So you could do this, try it out on your own. And then it's just this Google Maps is what it's called. So you got this Google Maps API. And then down here in usage, this next piece, it has the example using the geocoding API, which is the documentation I was just looking at, right? And so it says how to use it. This is import statements like we've done in the past. This is a date time package, real popular in Python to use for doing different things with dates and times. That's not Google specific. And then from there, we're just doing Python. This is all Python that you should be able to read. We're setting variables here where we call Google Maps. So we instantiate this client thing, and then we can do stuff with it. We can send an address up. We can send up coordinates, and we know we'll get a coordinates back based on that response from the documentation. We'll get a JSON object back on these responses. And this is a Python script that if you just took this and put it in your website, you could plug it in the same way that we plugged in the JavaScript script and reference it through static files the way we've done up to now. So as you can see, the pieces that we've done in this class up to now, you should be able to take a piece together and plug in something like an API right here, which will vastly expand the capabilities of any application you're making. Is this making sense? Anybody got questions? I know that was pretty quick, but any questions about that up to here? Good. All right. Cool. So as always, shout out the questions, send them after class, between classes, however you like to do it. We're going to jump into our hands-on section and we're going to start building. So we're going to continue on our application. The first thing we're going to do, like always, I'll close this up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to implement this thing called namespace, right? So let's get started the way we always get started. What's the first step we always got to do before we start any work on any day?
Launch our virtual environment.
Yes. So we do that with source. We do the name of our virtual environment, then bin, activate, and then we're going to move into the top level of our project directory. Cool. Now we're ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to have to do in namespacing URLs is we're going to do some work in our URL specific. So we're going to go down to URLs and we're talking about what this namespacing is doing and why we would even do it, right? So let's go into our files. I'm going to open this up in a separate tab because we're going to come back to our console again. We'll come back to our site here in a minute. But we're going to go down to the application level URLs list. Remember, we got our my site, our application is to do. So I'm going to go down to do. And then urls.py. Okay, so this URL patterns, as you recall, every time we make one of our new operations, we add a page to our website or anything, we have to route it through here after we make our view. And this, again, is our application-specific level. Now, as you can see, we have index in here. We know this is referring to our project-level index. That's okay. That's all right. We're gonna move that here in a minute and readjust these things slightly. But this could remain indexed for this application. Like I said, we have 3 different pages, mostly to show how to make different pages. This to-do list application is so simple, we could have it on one page. And so this application could have an index of its own. And then again, you could make another application on your website that would say reserve tables or something like that. It too could have an index. So index, again, is very, very common for the home page or landing page or center page or whatever beginning root page of an application in Django's terms you might have. So there may be conflicts. About pages might be all over the place. You might have conflicts in the names of these things. And so the way to prevent conflicts is to add to this application's URL patterns something that's called namespace. So we're going to name these application patterns as being related to our to-do application, right? So let's do this, and hopefully it becomes a little clearer what this is doing for us. And if we got questions along the way, let's ask. But the first thing we need to do is just put in this app_name variable up here above our URL patterns, and we're going to set it to the string to do, lowercase name of our application, right? So the same as whatever your application name is, which if you're following the naming conventions, it's to do lowercase, but it needs to match that, right? So it matches your application name. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move these 2 paths, these two patterns up to our project level because these aren't actually, application level concerns. So I'm going to cut these out because I'm going to just paste them up to our project level URLs path, and we're going to route this in a way that's going to work still, hopefully, if we don't break anything. So I'm going to hit Control X, take these out, and then we can save this, and we can close it because we're done in here for now. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to my site, top level. So my site, urls.py. And before I forget, I'm going to add those 2 paths here, minding my indentation, not break anything. So I took my index and my about views, and I've moved them up to the project level URLs. Now this, again, this is one of the ways that we, I think it has it up in here. No, this has class-based views. Okay, so this is not one of the examples that's listed up here in the string of how to do this, of namespacing. So this is one of the reasons that we're doing it up here, so we have it all in one spot. This could arguably be moved out to a different application that's just your front page, web page application. Again, that might be an architectural decision you want to make early on. But for us, we're just going to keep it here, and we're going to add our named spaced URLs to this. Up here at the top, we have to do some more import statements. So what we're going to do is from to do, which is our application, which we've registered as an application in our settings, and it's treated as a set of things. We're going to import views. Now, that's not going to really help with the stopping of collisions because every application is going to come with a views file, right? As it's standard when we did our start app, it had views.py in it. So what we're going to do here is a very common thing to do in Python with imports is to save this immediately as a variable. So we're not just going to import the views and use views name like we have here, like we did when it was in the application level, right? So this views would map to that. What we're going to do is put the word as. So I've got from space to do space import space views space as lowercase, a reserved word. And then I'm going to give it a name, arbitrary name of a variable to use. Something descriptive. So I'm going to do to do underscore views. So we know what it is we're using as we go through our code. So this, again, very common thing to do in Python when you import stuff, depending on what it is. If you use some data science packages like pandas, it's almost always set with an as into a name of a variable that you will then use throughout. So now we have this to-do views. That's our specific application URLs. The other thing that we need to change now and update here is just these references. So I'm going to copy this to-do views. I'm going to change my views.index to to-do views.index and to-do views.about, which should be roughly the same thing as we have before. This shouldn't change any of the functionality we've had. We've refactored our code. We've moved these things around to where we now have our application in a way that as we add URLs to it, the URL names in that application don't matter. They're not going to conflict with any other application names. So as our project expands, which is not going to expand much further than one application for us, but if you wanted to and you want to expand further, this is one of the things you need to do early on and keep throughout to make sure that you have that set up like that, or to prevent the collisions. All right, so the last piece we need to do here, we've done a couple of things with URLs. We need to step over to our base.html and adjust the way that we reference this in our A tags, because that's a place that we reference our URLs. And now that we've namespaced them, we're going to reference them slightly differently in those places. So let's go to our templates project level. So my site templates, base.html. And then our navigation bar, we have our index, our about, and then our view tasks. And what's happened now is our index and about have moved up to the project level where they should be because it's project level concerns. And our view tasks has remained in our application. So we have to adjust this URL call to make sure that it's going to that named space, that space that has been named. So we have to put that string that we put the app underscore name above our URLs. We have to put that same name here as like a key value pair thing in front of a colon within the string that view tasks is in. So I'm just going to add the word to do and a colon right here. So I'm on, for me, it's line 18. I'm in the to-do list A tag in the href, the URL. I just added to do colon right before view tasks. And this is how you namespace your URLs. The idea being, if we kept index in there and to do had its own index and we added more applications that they each had their own index, we just prepend the name of that application and then we can use index any number of times. It'll never be a collision. That making sense?
But I'm just trying to follow. So the colon in this like function here, what's it trying to say? Like
It's saying that this is associated as a view with this application. So this application name space right here is associated with this view. So when the interpreter reads through this and finds it, it's going to use this to know which application to look into to look for this URL pattern. And it's being associated here with this colon.
okay.
Cool. That makes sense? Did that answer your question well enough? All right. And again, I get it. It's kind of slippery, but we're going to go through it. We're going to use it a few more times. Hopefully it hammers home. It's not going to be much, again, without more applications, it's kind of hard to show how well this works or why we would do it this way. But in the absence of time, we're not going to add a whole bunch of applications just to prove that there's no collision. But the idea is really to avoid collision. All right. So if nothing else from there, we are going to get started with adding our next function, our create. So that's namespacing. It's a cool idea. It's a great thing to use. I definitely recommend it. We're going to use it going forward. But let's shift gears into doing our next CRUD operation. And when we do this, what we're adding and what we're making is something we've already been interacting with already. So we're going to go up here to our My Site. And we're going to be in our application level to do folder because we're going to have to make some files in your A file and do most of our work in here. But it's also a great example of the thing we're going to make. So this right here, if you look at this page, we have this directories and we got this files input. We're going to make a file here in a second called forms.py. But before I do, I'm going to click on this and inspect it. I'm going to show what this element is because we're going to implement the same thing. This whole bar where there's an input for users and there's a little button to press that says new file. We're going to do largely that same stuff. And I want to show what this thing is here. Let me go ahead and select what I'm looking for because it should be an input form. Here we go. This form right here. So we are going to implement the same thing, this form element, and it has this method post. You see that there? That's an important thing. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to put this element in our page. So it's going to have a similar input box with a button of some sort to do a thing. So the interaction that we're going to do right here where we make our file is the exact interaction we're going to make, except it's going to be a to-do list item that we're going to implement, right? So we have to go make ourselves the actual form template to use. We have to make the view to go into it to do it. The first thing we're going to have to make, I'm going to close this up so we can actually see what we're doing now, and we're going to write our own code. The first thing we do is somewhat of an optional way of doing this. It's definitely what I recommend doing because it sets you up for when the project gets larger. You don't necessarily have to make a separate form file. You could do this in the views.py or pretty much anywhere else you wanted to, but we're going to set it up in a forms.py to, again, set us up for a larger project later. And we're just going to make a new file right here in the same place our models.py is in our to-do application directory. All right, so it's going to take us into a blank page. And we're going to import some things at the top like we normally do to leverage Django and all of its great stuff that it's got. So we're going to say from Django, we're going to import forms. Make sure it's plural. Pluralization, definitely something we can mess up a lot of times. And the form that we're going to make is going to be a specific kind of form that's going to interact with our models. It's going to be a model form. It's going to interact with our database that we made. And remember, models are the class definition of task that we made that references a database table in our relational database. So to do that, we're going to need to import that model the way we have before. We're going to say from.models, import, and then the name of the model we want. Task is the name of our model. And then we're going to make ourselves a form. And this form is not going to be the form that's visible on the site. So I just showed you that form in HTML. We're going to do a similar HTML form in a template somewhere. This is going to be handling the back-end interactions of which fields to grab and actually connect with our database to grab that information for us and put the information there. Think about this as being the thing that is going to actually interact with the database, right? So when we say form in this sense, it's not the form that users see. So we're going to define this as a class in Python. So we say class, and we're going to name it following conventions, capital T, task, form is helpful to say like the name of the model you're interacting with, and then form because it is a form. Again, camel case, so it's capitalized both letters. And we're going to inherit something from forms. And like I mentioned, it's going to be a model form, which is also a class. So it's capitalized model, capitalized form, all one word. And that model form is going to allow us to do some interactions with our models, which again, models are a reference to databases. Is how we define our databases in Django. So every time you hear model, think about database. Now, this is something we haven't done before. We're going to do it this time. Again, if you're a little confused as to why, ask. I'm going to try to explain it in a way that makes sense, but we're going to do a class within this class. And this class is going to be called, so we say class. So I'm indented in. I hit enter after the colon. I'm class. And I'm going to call this meta. It's not going to inherit anything. This meta class is, again, a standard thing in Django. It's what is going to handle the actual interaction with the database. Something I encourage you to read. If that's not a satisfactory explanation, look into how it does that deeper when you have an opportunity, but just know that that's what this meta class is doing. It's making the actual interaction with the database object itself possible for us so that we can do the things that we want to do. So what it needs to know from us is which model we're going to be interacting with. We put it in the name, but it doesn't actually read this name. This name doesn't mean anything to it. It doesn't really care. That's just for us to read. So we have to pass it a model attribute and set it to the name of the model we want. So task. So the thing that we imported up here at the top, the model that we were working with in our case. And then we need to tell it what fields we want to include in our form. Because think about this as a form. So it doesn't have to be all the fields that are in your model. You can have fields like, I don't know, the timestamp or something like that you don't want users to mess with, so they're not going to come out in a form. We're going to use all of ours. So we're going to do title, do, and status, all as strings in a list in our fields attribute. And that's it. That's all we're going to have in our forms.py. So we're going to save this. And again, very small. So the project level, project size that we're at, we could have put this in our views.py very easily, but that would very quickly get larger. There's a lot more things you may want to do with your task forms, style-wise, or any number of things you may want to do. And it's going to be handy to have it out in a separate file. But that's all we're going to be doing here. So let's go actually get our create operation rocking and rolling. We're going to need to use this form as we go, but we're going to now follow the same process that we followed every other time when we implemented one of our CRUD operations. We're going to go to our views, do a view, map a URL, do some with a template, and then add some navigation. So let's go back up to our to-do directory, views.py, and let's put that task form to some kind of use. All right, so first we got to import it. Just like we've done with our models, we're going to need to do it the exact same way to make sure that we have that task form. So we say from dot forms, import capital task, capital form, all one word. Now we can use it. So we're going to continue to write our functions or our views as functions. We'll do classes maybe next week. Hopefully, if we got time. Refactor all this quickly into classes, but for now we'll do them as functions. So we're going to do a function underneath our view task. So def, same keyword we've used before. And we're going to define a function called create underscore task, singular, one task. That is not, we're not creating multiple tasks. That might be a view you implement later. It's a possibility, but right now we're doing one task. So watch your plurals and singulars as we go. It's going to, like we have in the past, handle a request, like we've talked about before. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to be doing with this request. Now this time, instead of what we've done before, where it's simply just, we sent the request forward, didn't do a lot with it, we're going to start doing some stuff with it. And there's a lot can come out of the request. We can get user information, time information, tons of stuff that's in there. But this is what we're going to check first is the method of the request. We're going to use an if statement as our first line here to check to see if the request method is post. If it is post, we're going to do some stuff with it with our form. If it's not, we're going to do something else. So let's do the first check with a logical statement doing request dot method. So if space request dot method is equal to, so two equal signs, and then the string post, all caps, colon, to enter our block of logic to enter the code for if that is the case. And again, post is the HTTP protocol name for creating something. So if the method that is sent up is post, so this is the scenario in which somebody has filled out a form and pressed the submit button, the method will be post. So this is where there is information in the request in the form from the HTML, which we haven't made yet, but it'll be there. What? We got a question. What was the form stuff? Form line of code. You mean this up here? The from dot forms import fast task form? Is that what you're asking about, Mike?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yep. So this is bringing in that task form that we created over in forms.py so that we can use it.
Well, so if you look at line 21, I think you spelled request wrong.
Thank you. I did. Good catch. So we're just about to use this task form, and hopefully I will not misspell things, but let's see. All right. So we're going to now set ourselves up with a form. We're going to use this as a variable name. It could be anything, but we're going to say form so that we know what it is we're messing with. And we're going to an instance of our task form. If you recall, an instance of a class is the name of that class with open and closing parentheses. Now we could pass something to this, and we're going to, because this is the scenario in which somebody has come to our site and the method is post, meaning they've filled out the form, they've hit submit, and they want to send to our server the information that they filled out in that form. So we need to do the request dot post to make sure that the post information from the request is bound to the form. That's the idea, is binding it to the form. That's what this code is doing. Now that we've done that, we can do some things with this form. So it's bound to the form. We have it lined up the right way with the fields that we wanted. The information from the request is put in there. Now we have to, in some way, put it into our database and commit it, save it to our database. Before we do that, we want to run a check to make sure that the information is valid inside of it. And Django has a really cool built-in thing for that. It makes it very easy for us to do. And we're going to do another if block inside of the if block that we're in. So we're still the same indentation level as 4. We're 2 indents over because we're inside the function call or the function definition, and we're inside of our if logic for the checking the request method. We're going to do another if statement, and we're going to say the form that we created on line 23 dot is underscore valid, open and closing parentheses. This is a built-in method for all Django forms. Really helpful. If you're curious what it does, you can read it in the Django documentation and go look at the actual method call itself. But it's going to help us to make sure that this information is good before we send it to our database and commit it. So this would be a place that we could do all kinds of stuff to it. If we want to do, if we want to take the information that was in the form, tear it up, do some more Python code to run some more algorithms, whatever we like, we could do that here. We're not going to do anything crazy with this. This is just, again, a bare bones, simplistic. Once we've checked that it's valid, we're just going to save it. But you could do any number of things here. This would be a place to put some more logic, some more algorithms, and whatever you like. At the last step, when you're ready to finish up and save the information, you're just going to simply do form.save. And it's also a built-in method, so open and closing parentheses. So that's the last step. Once you've done all the things you're going to do to the information, you could add, again, from the request, you could get what user submitted this and put their user information if this is an application where people have logged in. Any number of things that you can do here and expand the functionality of this. So now once we've saved this, if we think back to that picture that we showed in the beginning where there's a client and there's a server, client sent a request. This request was to send information to the server. They're not going to go to the server. The user themselves, there's nothing to see there in the server. So we have to put them some other place. We have to redirect them to another place. And I actually forgot to import a couple of things we need to do this. So let's go up and import those things before we move on, or else we're not going to be able to use it. There's 2 more packages we need to use, because up to now we've done this render package where all we've done is render to request and a template. Now we need to redirect people to another place, because they're not going to go to the same place as the data to the server, to the database. They're not going to go to our database. They need to be redirected somewhere. And since we have our namespace set up, the way that redirect URL is going to be found is through a method called reverse. So we have to go import those 2 packages. So let's move up real quick before we finish our create task and import those packages, which I should have done from the very, very beginning. And I skipped the absolute first step. So the redirect package is from the same Django.shortcuts that's already on line 1. So what we're going to do is just after render, I'm going to add a comma and add to this import statement redirect. Similar to what's already there, just a comma after render, hit redirect. And again, this is going to help us redirect people from where they sent the request back to some other page and not to the server where the data goes. And then the other thing we need to do is to help us handle the namespace URLs that we set up is what's called reverse. It's going to look at them from the namespace side and find where they need to be. So from Django.urls, we're going to import reverse. All right, now we got those 2 packages. Let's go back down and finish what we needed to finish. So we're inside of our new create function here. We're inside of our logic to see that the form was valid. And now we need to handle our return statement. We've saved it, we've committed to the database, and so we're going to return. And again, this is where we send our users to wherever they're going to go. So we need to redirect them, opening parentheses. We're going to use reverse to be able to find our namespaced application. And we're going to put in to do view tasks. So the same URL that we use in our A tag in the reverse sense to tell them where we want them to go, because in our case, we want them just to go back to the home page or not homepage, but our to-do list homepage that we're calling view tasks that views all the tasks. So 2 closing parentheses because we have the reverse with 1 set of parentheses, and we have our redirect on the outside, putting that all together, and that is in our return statement. So this, again, is in the case that our method is a post request. We're going to make a form that binds that request information, that post information from the request to the form that we made in our forms.py. We're going to use Django's built-in stuff to see if that form information is valid. If so, we're going to save it, and we're going to return the user back to our view tasks page. Great. So that was a lot, but we're not there yet, because the other situation is what happens if it's not a post method, right? So we have to go back out to this first level of indentation. So we're only 4 spaces or 1 tab away from the edge of the thing. We're in the same line as our top level if request.method is equal to post. This is the other situation. So we're going to do else, colon, and do our else scenario. And what was the other method that we talked about earlier? There was post, and then there's the other one that said we've seen, but we haven't really talked about explicitly. Do you remember what it was called? What was that? Get. Yep. It was get. So we're not going to say it explicitly, but this else condition is assumed to be a get request. So this is when somebody comes to our page the first time and they click create. In our case, we're creating a task. So they click the create task button on our page. It's going to take them to what we want is an empty form. So we want to just say form. And we'll say is equal to, because we're setting, I'm sorry, not is equal to, is. We're setting our form like we did before as an instance of our task form. Except this time we're not binding anything to it. This time we're just going to keep it blank, right? Because it's a blank form. So that's our else condition. We need to, as we have in the past, send that form as a context object to our front end. So everything from here out is really going to be similar to what we've done in the past. We're going to render the request information and a template and all that stuff, just like we did up here. And we're going to send that context information. So let's set the context. So we'll say context. And here I can space down a little bit so it's a little off the bottom of the page. And again, we're at the same indentation level as our else and our if statements. So we're back just 1 indentation away from the end. And we're going to set our context to a dictionary with a key value pair of form being the key. And our value is going to be that form variable that we set up here as our actual form thing. And then from there, we will, as we have in the past, just return our users by misspelling return, by rendering. So we're going to use render. We're going to send the request. This is what we've done in the past with our about and our other views. And then we'll send them to a template of some sort. So we're going to say to do / because it's a project level. So we're going to stay in the project level. And we're going to say create. What's up, Alex? No worries. Thanks for hopping in. We're going to do create -task.html as a string. We have to go make this, but we'll reference it here. And then we need to send that context object, a context dictionary as well. All right, so now we can save this. So save this bad boy. All right. Now what's the second thing we got to do? After we create a view, we have to do what?
Create the URL.
Yeah, map the URL. Very good. So we go to do, and we're in our project level. So we're going to do project level URLs. This is a project level concern. So we're going to add ourselves to our newly namespaced URL patterns. And this is going to be following the same stuff we've done up to now. There's going to be nothing crazy about this at all. So we're just going to, underneath our basic to do one, we're going to add another path, open parentheses, starting off the string, the name that we want to do. We could call it anything. We'll say task/new and make trailing slash as a string with a comma to the other things we're going to have in there. This, again, we call that whatever we like. We could say task, anything you like for the URL, but keep it somewhat descriptive. And then we'll say views dot create underscore task singular. And then we'll say the name is the string create dash task, because dashes are typically what we use for file names. And we're going to keep that name the same as the template name for consistency. And so there we go. We mapped our URL. Not a lot to it. Same patterns we've done before. to our new view that we just wrote for create task. So we're going to save this. And now what? We've written the view. We've mapped a URL. What's the next step?
Can you have the path to traverse through the new created page?
Yes, we have to create the actual template that it's going to hold the HTML that shows the form to people and they can actually interact with on the front end. So this connecting it to the front end in some way. And again, this is still a back end concern because we're not worried about what the front end looks like or how pretty it is. We're just plugging it in, make sure that they have a way to interact as users in the front end. So we're going to go to our application level templates. So I'm in my site to do templates, and there should be the interior to do, again, to prevent conflicts for templates and whatnot. Next to our view-tasks.html, we're going to do a create task. .html. Enter on this, and again, this form that I'm doing this in is the same form we're about to make. So this whole interaction I'm doing right here, where I hit new file and it redirects me somewhere, it's exactly what we're about to do, right? So this is the same thing we're doing. We're doing that interaction that I just did. And if you're doing it with me, same interaction you did. We're going to make that happen right now. All right. So same way we've done our other templates for consistency. We're going to start with the Django tag, which is the curly brackets percentage sign. And I'm going to put the end of it, the percentage sign curly brackets, so don't forget. And this is going to be the extends tag to tell us which template we want to extend, in our case, base.html as a string. And then we're also going to be putting inside of a block. So we put more Django tags down here, curly brackets, percentage sign, curly brackets, and then the reserved word block. And then the name that we chose earlier, what our block is called, which is content. And then before we move any further, remember to do the end block in a Django tag somewhere underneath block. All right, now we are ready to write some HTML with some Django template language in there to inject the pieces that we need and make it more dynamic and fun. So let's start off with something real basic that we had before, just a heading that kind of tells us what's happening on this page. We'll do an H3 that just says new task, because again, this is the page where the form is going to be, where they're going to be creating, users are going to be creating a new task. And so just like we looked at when we inspected the element and we looked over at what Django or what Python Anywhere had, we're going to use the form HTML tag. I'm going to go ahead and close this up and go inside of it. But we're going to add some classes to this, or not classes, but some information. So we're going to add a class. We're just going to tell it to be a post-form. Again, remember that we have double quotation marks in HTML. If you've been using single for Python like I have, don't remember to switch back to these. This, again, is just kind of telling you there's some class information that's useful to grab on what sort of, to make it look right and operate the same way that we expect it to. There are a couple other things that we want to add. This next one is a little bit dumb, but we're going to add it to be nice to people with old browsers. So it says action attribute, and we're going to pass an empty string. So just open and closing quotation marks with nothing in it. And what this is doing is just making sure that people with really old browsers, it doesn't break for them when they go to your site. This is not useful in new browsers. It does nothing. That's why we pass it as placeholder. But old browsers expect it, and if it's not there, it just breaks. So this is sort of making it backwards compatible with older browsers and people that might be out there still using them. Can't be ageist, can't be hating on people. All right, the next piece is really important. We got to put method in here. I've forgotten this plenty of times, and you'll go through all this thinking about how your stuff flows through your application, and then you forget to put this little piece, and your form will not work, and it'll be infuriating. You'll be pressing it, and it'll just blank stare at you. So we do method, and what method do we think we want this to be? What method are we trying to handle here?
Worms.
Post.
Post. Yeah.
Post. So we're going to have all caps post method. All right. So yes, once again, action, don't need it, but this method part, if you forget this, it's exceptionally frustrating. I think I've done it in class. It's really annoying. All right. So now let's do some of the Django stuff inside of this form. Is again, Django HTML things. The first thing is going to be a Django thing. It's a really helpful piece that they include that's a security feature for forms, because forms is a great way for malicious people to inject code into your bait, do all kinds of wacky stuff. It's actually a lot of fun if you're interested in going that route of doing cybersecurity and that kind of stuff. There's a great site, if you haven't heard of it, called Hack This Site, where you actually try to hack the site. It's a lot of fun, and it gets progressively more difficult with challenges, and it's a blast. A lot of it though is kind of just built into where to find things in logs. But that's kind of a digression. Let's stay focused on this. Django does have some things in there to help make forms a little bit more secure. One of the things that they have, is something that you should always include when you're writing a form, is a Django tag. So it's going to be curly brackets, percentage sign. I'm going to close it up, percentage sign, curly brackets. And this is what's called a CSRF, which stands for cross-site reference forgery underscore token. So this cross-site reference forgery token is a security feature that ensures that cross-site reference forgery cannot be done. If you're curious what that is, go look it up. It's, again, a whole fun world of cybersecurity out there for you to explore. The most important thing to remember, though, is that this will help keep your site safer when you have a form like this that's exposed to the public that can just use it, or end users of any kind, to make sure that they can't do anything malicious. They'll still be able to do it. This isn't making your site totally secure, but this is a very good way to prevent a cross-site reference forgery, which is a very common attack. So if you forget that, naughty, naughty. All right, so from there, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go to our form that we made, and it's going to be any kind of form, right? This Django thing shouldn't care. It's going to be responsive to any number of form fields, but we're going to have to grab the fields out of that form that we put into our view and display them up on the page. So we're going to do a for loop to loop through those things and do some stuff with it, right? So let's do Django tags again, curly brackets, percentage sign, curly brackets, and we're going to do for, just like we have in the past, for loops, and we're going to do a variable name. Since we're working with fields, I'm going to say for field, singular, in form. Now, form, not an arbitrary name. That's what we passed in our context object in our view. If you recall, we passed the form up here, and so the form is going to have fields in it. And before we move on, I'm going to put the end for Django tag in here, curly brackets, percentage sign. End for, all one word, all lowercase, percentage sign, curly bracket. If you forget the end for, again, it'll break and you will feel shame. So inside of our field, or our for loop that we're now looping through our form, we're going to add a div like we've used before, just to add some space for ourselves. Not going to do anything real special with it, but it's going to contain the information we have on the inside and give us a little breakup on the page a little bit, so it's not all jammed up to the edge. And we're going to put in a paragraph tag, which is, again, just a way to put in text that you can use to format and things like that. We could just put this in plain text, but the P tag, the paragraph tag, is helpful in keeping things orderly, keeping it nice in HTML. Inside of this, we're take things out of it the way we have before. Double curly brackets this time, both open and closing. So do the name of the thing we want, field dot label. And that's going to be, in our case, status, title, due date, all those sorts of things. Outside the double curly brackets, I'm going to put a colon. This is just plain text. This is just for visual, whatever you like. You don't have to put that in there if you don't want to. And then I'm going to use this other HTML tag, BR, open and closing, just like that. It doesn't have a closing tag with a slash. And this just is a visual break on the page. So it's like a carriage return. It's like a line down. And the next line in here is going to be also from Django. So two curly brackets, open and closing, double curly brackets. And then we're just going to put the field itself, not call anything out of it, just the field. So that is the square that people put in the information. That's the input bar thing, is think of that. That's what the field is. So the label is the name of the thing. So we'll say, like, title, and then this is underneath it. There should be a little bar where you put in the title that you want to put in as you create things. Cool. So that's it. So this is a real standard way. And that's not it. We're going to keep going. We got a couple other things we got to do here. But this is a real standard way to get your form fields up onto the page. It's going to loop through, grab each one. Doesn't matter how many fields you got in your form. In our case, it's 3. It could be 12. Doesn't matter. Grab each one, put it on its own line with the label and a place to input the information. So the next thing we want to do is standard form for Django is some way to handle errors, right? So let's say you got the two-state thing that we used before for abbreviation is an example when we were talking about the number of characters you put in for max length in the character field in our models. Let's say you have two and it goes longer than that, right? So you want some way for this thing to say, hey, that's too long, that we can't accept that. That's a bad, bad input. And so that typically, again, is called error handling. We do something that handles errors. It's a typical concern of developers in all varieties. I want to do a very simple level of it here with another for loop, a nested for loop. So we're still inside the for loop we were before. I'm directly underneath the p tag. I'm going to open another for loop in Django tag. So we do curly bracket, percentage sign. Oh, not dollar sign, percentage sign, for. And then I'm going to use error because we're looking for errors. So for error in, and because we're still in our field, we're still looking at one field out of our form, right? We have this particular field we're looking at. So we're going to do field dot errors, plural. So just like all for loops, the first word is arbitrary variable name. We're using error to be descriptive, know what we're talking about. We're going to do in field dot errors. So all the errors in this particular field, if there were any. So this will only happen if there are those. If there aren't any, you'll skip right past this piece of code. I'm going to close this for block before I put anything in it, just so I don't forget. So Django tags, curly bracket, percentage sign, end for all lowercase, percentage sign, curly bracket. And then inside this inner for loop, I'm just going to put a small red text that shows the error that popped up. So that's what we're going to do inside here. So we're going to use the appropriately named small tag. And I'm going to add some inline style to it so we don't have to get crazy, just the word style as an attribute. I'm going to set it to color so red. Again, we could do key value pairs inside of a style tag. Just inline styling, like we talked about before, is a very simple way to do it. So we don't have to have full on CSS and run static, collect static and all that garbage. We can just do inline styles to make this text red. And then we're going to grab, with our double curly brackets, the error, which again is the name that we used up here. So just for each error in this field errors set, if it exists, if there are any, it'll print out the content of that error in red as a small little thing on the page underneath the form field itself. So if there's errors on multiple fields, it'll pop up underneath it and say what the error is. All right. So now we've handled some errors. We've got the input up there. What else, thinking logically about every time you've gone to a form on the internet, and we just did it here to make this file, what else does this need? As a form, what else does a form need generally? We got the fields, we could input information. What else do we like? Let's assume we filled out all the fields. What do we expect there to be at the bottom of the page?
Like a button submit.
Yeah, submit button. So we got to put in the submit buttons. We got to have a submit button. We're going to put in 3 different buttons. So we're going to have a submit button, we're going to have a reset button, and we're going to have a cancel button, right? So there's kind of the 3 things we think our users are likely to want to do. The first 2 of those are going to come built into HTML. So we're going to use button tags for the first 2. There's the submit button and the reset button. So this is going to take type as an attribute, and that is going to be conveniently submit for our first one. I'll close this off, and we can just put the word submit in here. That's arbitrary. The word inside is just text to display for the user. You can put whatever you like. And then similarly, a button, which will be the type, double curly brackets, reset. These again are both built in to HTML, so we don't have to do anything crazy with this. So I'm going to put reset as the label for that too. Human readable, again, doesn't matter what's in there. Now, cancel, this is something that doesn't just come out of the box, right? So cancel, because think about what canceling is as a function. If we're on this page and we came over here and we're like, we don't want to be here anymore, it's really just navigating back to another page. So all we're going to do is put in a tag that we've done a bunch of times, call it cancel, but route it back to our view tasks thing. So I'm going to do an a tag with our href set to our Django tag, which is going to have the curly brackets, percentage sign, curly brackets inside of our attribute string. We're going to use the URL tag, and then our namespace to do : view dash tasks. And we'll put cancel inside that as a word. And I think in the documentation, I'm looking at it right now, it doesn't have any classes to make this look like a button. I'm going to put a class BTN on this, way we have in the past, to see if it makes it look a little better. Because I think this will, the way it's written in the documentation, which I might need to go update, is just going to make that, you won't see it, but it'll work as a button. So. All right. So we have done this piece and we've made this and we're solid now. Now this is the template. So this is, we've made our view, we've mapped our URL, we've made a template. We can save this. What is the last step in our 4 steps whenever we make a new CRUD operation?
We update the website.
You're right there. Yeah.
What do we call it? Oh man.
So we help them out. You're almost there, man. I can tell. You're like
Yeah.
you're on the doorstep.
Uh, yeah. Uh we gotta update our console. I
Not the
forgot.
console. We got to get
Uh,
navigation to this new template. We have to somehow put navigation in our thing to get there, right? So if we go back to our site real quick and just look at what we got now before we update anything and push anything to the server side, as it stands, if I want to add a task right now, the create and all that stuff that I made, it exists, but I can't do any, like, how I can't get to it here. So we got to put some kind of navigation to that here, like a button here that says add task. It'll take us to that form so we can fill out the form and go through that whole view that we just made, right? So this is the last step, is add navigation of some kind to the existing project. Tracking? Cool. All right, let's do that piece. So that piece, well, actually, let's ask that. So what template are we on right now? Where do we need to add this button? Where am I going in my file structure? If I want to add the button on the page I'm looking at right now, where do I want to go in my file structure to add it?
Views.
No, not views. We already got our view. So we're at the tail end of that process. We're adding navigation now. So we're going to be in one of our front end templates someplace. But and so the template we're looking at, right? So what template are we looking at right now? Like where is this? Where is this in our project? When at this page that I'm on right now, I'm on my to-do list page. This is like what happens when I click the to-do list and I'm brought here. Where am I brought? This
is
is
it the
what?
base HTML?
No, the base.html is the parts that are the same on every page, right? That's the home about and all this stuff, the nav bar at the top. That's our base.html. This page where it says tasks,
Oh,
no tasks found. What page is that?
Isn't that in the to-do file or to-do directory?
It is. It's an application level template. Yep. So it's our templates to do. So it's in the same place where we are right now with our create task HTML. Our view tasks.html. So this is where we're going to add that button. So let's go to that. So we're in our to do. So my site to do templates to do view task.html. And here is, if we weren't sure this is the right spot, this is that H3 tag that if we want to inspect it to make sure we could tell it's an H3. There's our H3 tag that says tasks, and here's our H3 tag that says tasks. So this is the place where we want to be. This is where we want to add our button. And if we look at this again logically, we have our if statement here checking to see if we have tasks to grab. And if we have some, we should display them. And if not, we should say no tasks found. Like in the case of my site right now, I have no tasks to display. Didn't realize I had erased all my tasks, but apparently I did. So I'm just on the ball like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this button outside of this whole thing. Because no matter what, if we have tasks or not, we're going to want to add tasks. Now we could put this down at the bottom of our first condition, say if there's tasks, and then have this button in there, we could add more tasks. And then we'd have to put it again in this end if part, in the else condition part, right? And there's a principle in in developing we haven't hit on too hard called don't repeat yourself or dry. So if you have an opportunity to write something once versus twice, probably better to write it once. So what we're going to do is put it outside of that if logic at the bottom of our page so that it's always there no matter if we have tasks, we don't have tasks. It should show up one time solidly. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to put this in a div like we have plenty of times to demarcate some space at the bottom of our page. And we're going to use a built-in thing in our front end framework called row for this div. And it's just going to be a row across the page, give us a set size to put stuff in. And then inside of that div, we're going to do another div and set it as a class attribute of container, which again is a very helpful thing for sizing and responsiveness and all that sort of stuff. So now we've blocked off a little bit of space at the bottom where this button's going to go. And it's going to be really straightforward. This is just going to be a simple A tag like we've done plenty of times. So we're going to do A, short for anchor, set the class as BTN. This time I'm also going to add BTN dash primary because then it'll be like this blue button thing, which is again from Bootstrap. And we'll set our hyperlink reference, our href attribute, which again is going to be a string. This is going to be a Django tag. It's like each time with a curly bracket, percentage sign, curly bracket, referencing a URL. And we have namespaced our URLs. So we're going to now, as a string, a single quotation mark string, we're going to do to-do, colon, create, task, which should match the name of the URL pattern that you put into URL patterns in your to-do urls.py. And then we're going to close this off. And as the text inside, I'm going to put add task. Again, arbitrary. You put anything you like in there. And it should work the same. The computer does not care what this is called. This is all for humans to read. So I'm going to save this. Now that's a lot before we reload this and see if it works. But that should be the last step. So now that we've done this, we should be able to have an add task button pop up. I'm going to go back to look at the site real quick. It should pop up here at the bottom. We should be able to add tasks and mess around with it. So let's go reload server-side code. Give that a second, and then we'll refresh the browser, and we'll test this new function out, see if it works the way we expect it to. So when I refresh, didn't break yet, which is encouraging. The add task button popped up, which is also encouraging. When I click on this, it takes to the URL that I told it to, and we have our form. So here's our title. I can put in, get your life together. And we can give it a due date. We could say January next year sounds good, and we'll hit submit. And there we go. So now we have a way to create tasks. Let's check out our cancel button. Didn't come out any nicer. I guess I need to do more to make that more visible. The button class didn't help, but it's there. You just can't see it till you hover over it. So, we might have to put some more styling on that to make it come out at us a little bit better. Maybe make it a primary button like that blue one. But let's try resetting. So I'll put in something in here and I'll say, oh, wait, no, that's not the title I want. Oh, that doesn't work. That helps. Let's hit reset. Reset works. Let's hit cancel, see if that works. Cancel works, takes us back. So now we have a basic way to add tasks to our task list. This is create tasks. Is complete. All right. Was everybody able to do that? That's on the call. I know, Alex, you showed up late, so you probably missed some parts at the beginning that might be crucial, but anybody else that was following along?
I think I put the create task.html in the wrong directory.
Okay. The template, you mean?
Yeah, because I got a bunch of errors, but I noticed when you went through it, I have it in my site to do directory.
Yeah.
My site to do templates directory under to do.
Yeah, it should be my site to do templates to do. The same place as your view dash tasks HTML.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Okay. So that could be the issue. One way that you could do that, do you have it someplace? Do you have it in the templates folder, or like some other directory? Did you make the create tasks.html?
I did.
Okay. Where is it? Do you know?
It's in templates.
Is it in template? So it's just one directory up from where it needs to be?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So what you can do is a handy command. I don't know if we've used it for anything yet, but this move command is just MV, and it takes here, I'll just pull up the documentation. It takes source destination, right? So in your case, you would just do MV, and then you would say, tilde slash my site to do templates, the create task.html, and then destination would be the tilde slash my site to do templates to do slash. So MV is a helpful way to move stuff around if you need to put it in a different place in your file structure.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know if that helps you get unstuck. And if not, we have plenty of time. I can hop in there and help. I left plenty of time for today to make sure we answer questions and help people get unstuck if they got stuck, because there's a lot of stuff that we went through today. So, John Michael, you stuck somewhere? Or are you able to get it?
I literally have the same exact problem.
Oh,
So
okay.
so that command, you said the source is tilde, and then it would be my site to do.
Here.
So right now, create task is in templates.
Okay. So
Um,
so you would do this. You do MV. I usually do the sort of complete absolute path just to make sure I know I'm doing the right thing, especially with move operations. But since we're in my site, you don't have to be this explicit, but I'm gonna put just like tilde my site slash to do, and using tab complete again to make sure that you've got these things that you expect them to be. Um, and then we're gonna do templates, right? And then the name of the file, because I'm not gonna have anything there to complete, but it should be the create task dot html, right? And then I haven't hit enter. This is just going down the next line, and then so I'm just hitting space. So that's the source, and then the destination would be tilde my site to do slash template slash to do slash. So then just the destination that you want to send it, and it should just move that file into that directory for you. Again, I'm not gonna run this because I don't have a file there to move, but
yeah, it worked.
cool.
Yeah,
That work?
yep.
Did that get the site unstuck too?
Gonna test it now.
Okay, cool. How about you, Mike? Were you able to move the file?
It said missing destination file operand.
Missing destination file operand. You want me to hop in on your console and have a look?
Sure.
All right. So I know, and also kind of part of like I'm sure there's a way to move stuff around in Python anywhere. I honestly just don't know. I'm just gonna have to plead ignorance on that one. I don't actually know how to move a file on the GUI side. So let's just hop in here and have a look at your console, see what it says. Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, you just didn't put in the full command. So here, what you put in there where if you do all those things that you typed again, except that you do source. There you go. So you want the my site to do templates, create HTML, and then do space. Don't hit enter yet. And then put in the directory that you want it to go to. So that's where we're going to do the my site to do templates to do. And no file name, just the directory name to do slash.
Slash.
Yeah, put the slash on there. There you go. And then hit enter. That should work.
What?
All right, do it with the because it's so like you put in the absolute path without the tilde in the front. So it's looking for something at the root and it's not at the root. So that's just hit the up arrow. Don't rewrite it from scratch. Hit the up arrow. And then hit the back keys until you get to, or you could hit Control A. Yeah, it's okay. Hit the back keys. And then just put the tilde on there. Whoop.
Fancy. Oh, never mind. Okay,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just throwing that. Whoop.
let's do that.
I'll just keep disappearing on you. Oh yeah, don't hit up. Just hit back. Don't hit up. It's one line, even though it looks like it's on two lines. So just hit your back arrow. Don't hit up at all, or else it'll disappear on you again. And then just add the tilde in front of the slash for my site.
Yeah, it jumps.
Huh. Oh, here, let me see if I can do it. Hold on.
Okay.
Tilde there. Whoa, that's not a tilde. You're a tilde. There we go. So now, if you look on the GUI side, it should be there. I mean, you can check here if you want to just run ls or something, but now it should be moved over in that spot. Did that work for you, John Magu? That you unstuck?
So I ran into a new error. It was giving me in create task HTML line 17. It's highlighting red. URL to do view tasks. Um, I guess I did to do colon view underscore tasks.
Ah, it's got to be. Yeah, it's probably a dash because view tasks is
Yeah.
we did view dash task is the name, right?
Yeah. So I changed it to dash and I'm testing it now to
Yeah.
see, and that fixed it. Yep.
Nice.
So
So you got it
yeah.
running?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got it run.
Sweet. All right. Cool. All right. So,
Oh,
Michael.
I got the dreaded something went wrong page.
All right. Let's have a look at the what thing went wrong. Hop down your logs, go down to the bottom from to do import views as to do views. What is this error saying to us? That could be it. It looks like in your views.py, it looks like you forgot to write import up the import statement. You've got from.forms and then the name of the form, but you didn't write the word import. I think that might be what's breaking it for you.
What was in URL?
Views. So your to do views.py. Line 4.
I got from dot forms task force task
Yep.
form.
Yeah,
Task
you got to
form.
import after dot forms. So it should say from dot forms import task form.
Okay. Let's try it again.
Yeah, give that a shot.
Correct.
Does that work?
Nope, something else.
Okay. Let's see. To get something else went wrong. Oh, wait, did you reload it?
I
I don't know if you
did.
need to. Yeah, and it still went wrong? Okay. I'm right in the right spot to look at the logs. Let's have a look. See what's going on here. All right. Resolve request.path. No module. Okay. So, looks like another misspelling because it's not to do dot model. Where is that you wrote that though? Because it should be to do dot models
Hmm.
because it's the name of the file. So wait, where was that? Is that in forms? From dot mod. Yeah, there we go. So I
Forms.
think I think in your forms.py, yeah. Check every place that you put model in forms.py.
We've got class task form forms dot model form.
Hang on a second. Let's go. My site to do forms.py. Okay. So yeah, this right here should be plural.
Um,
because it's the name of the file is models, not model. So that's I think looking at that looking at your logs, I think that's the issue. So you should just be from dot models with an S. And looking
try
at
it again.
I think everything else looks good. Let me get out of here, make sure I'm not blocking you on save.
I reloaded it, and there's my index page.
All right. That's progress.
To-do list. There we go. Add a task. I can do that. New task, do, status, submit, reset.
Working?
Uh, Seems to.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Cool. So that was a lot. That was a lot that we got through today. But we did get to the point that I wanted to, and we still got plenty of time. So anybody have any questions about what we've covered up to now? Anything outstanding about where we're going next week? Next week's our last week. We're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna finish up updating tasks now and then deleting them. And updating is gonna be following the same patterns we do with create. It's just gonna the only difference is gonna be taking information out of the database first so that we have something to update, right? Like it's adding the read and the create, combining it into update. So it's like a slight progression towards where we want to go. Then delete's really easy. We're just going to slap that in and use the JavaScript that we used earlier to tie it off to give us a confirmation without having to do the full Django create a template and do all that. We're going to shortcut it by using JavaScript to again show how those things can interact with each other and how they work together. But that will be Tuesday. We'll do that, and then we'll move on to some advanced stuff on how to save this and work with GitHub and work with others for the last day. But
Well,
cool.
an
Any
interesting item. I talked to you briefly about this before. When
yeah.
I traverse between home, about, and to-do lists, I get a pop-up that says delete a task.
Yep.
We didn't write anything for delete, so yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's the JavaScript. You still have it hooked up to your about page
okay,
or your about button. So I know. So I know it's just a class call in there
all
in
right,
your um the base.html is what I'm trying to think of. So I'm gonna go there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. In your templates, base.html, and this is yours that I'm looking at here. Um, and so you still have this class button dash
right,
delete on your
yep,
about page, and
okay,
that references our custom JavaScript, which again, that's what we're going to use when we go to set up our delete buttons. So if you don't want that to be working now on your about page that we use for testing, you just take this class call out, and it'll stop doing that.
okay. Otherwise, the what we did in to do seems to work.
Excellent, excellent, cool. So
Stuff to
that's
play with.
that's half of our CRUD operations. Plenty to play with between now and next time. Make some more stuff. Go look into anything that you didn't quite catch, and come with questions if you need to.
Excellent.
All right, y'all.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So I'm like, as I try to put tasks in, like nothing pops up on the to-do lists. Is that,
Uh oh. Let's have a look.
yeah,
All right, let's see.
uh,
Where are you?
JM,
Jam
JM.
right there. Yeah. Okay. So first, I got too many my sites open now. All right, there's your site. To-do list. Say add task. All right. Interesting. So no errors, but it's not popping up here. So where do you think we could look to start debugging this? Where's the first place that you think you should look?
Uh, like create task.
Okay. Okay. What makes you think that? And when you say
Uh,
create task, what do you mean? Like, do you mean the view or the
uh,
template?
in the template, because
Okay.
like, isn't that where we created the general um like that's I know that's where we created I know like the majority of this form.
Yeah. So when you click this add task button, this is what we're looking at here is the create task template. So we can get that. And there's nothing wrong in here that I can see. The
Okay.
problem happens when you create something and it doesn't pop up here and you're still seeing no tasks found, even though I just made a task and you made some tasks. So there should be
Yeah.
tasks. Did you check in your admin panel to see if there are tasks there?
I have not checked that. Let's see.
So that's one thing to check. See if they are actually being created. That'll help hone in on where the problem is. So if there's nothing actually being created, then we know that's one issue. If they are being created and not being found when you're doing the read operation, that's a different problem. And Alex Michael, if you like, I'm going to keep recording while we debug this, me and John Michael, and you guys are welcome to hang out and do it live with us. I think this is really a value part of it. That's why I make sure that there's time here for it. But you're also welcome to hop if you want to. So we are right about it time.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, right on, Alex. So what do you think, John Mike? You got those tasks in there?
Uh, I am struggling to get my password to work.
Yeah, to log in. Yep.
Uh, it was a email address to get in, right? Like
Um, no, I think you use the username.
it was a username.
Yeah, I think it's just that. Yeah, yeah. Should be the username. Whatever
Let's
username you set. I'm gonna start poking around your files while you're doing that, but
Okay.
definitely do that to see if things are being created because that's gonna be helpful for where we got to go to debug.
Yeah, I was sure I saved this in one password, but guess not.
Okay. Well, I think I found your problem already. Just
Okay.
you know, but actually, do you know how to get unstuck from the password issue? Because that's
You
something you're definitely
said
gonna need.
create a new user, like a new super user.
Yeah, man, just make a new super user. Um, in the console, just do Python 3 manage.py create super user and follow the prompts, and then you
Yeah.
can log in to like with whatever you need to do. All right, so here, I was assuming basically like my thought process here was we didn't get any errors and nothing obviously broke when we submitted the form and we sent in to create a new task, right? So I'm without double checking that it's being created in the database, I'm assuming that that worked because I trust Django and I'm just I have faith that worked. I have no reason to believe it didn't. My assumption is that there's something wrong in your logic for the read operation, that it's not grabbing the stuff because I do believe we made something in the database. I have no reason to think we didn't. And again, barring confirming that by looking at the database itself, I went to see if the logic for grabbing that stuff in the front end and presenting it on the page was right. And I don't think it is. I think I found an error in there. So I'm looking at the view tasks.html template. Do you see what could be wrong here? It's on the page. The issue is on the page for sure. It's a very small error.
So
Line
is it
three
because create tasks it should be plural?
on where are you seeing that?
Line 30, like the URL.
No, wait. Are you looking at my screen or yours?
I'm looking at mine. Am I looking at the
Oh,
wrong screen?
yeah. No, look at my screen, man.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
Okay.
pointed at. I'm looking at the thing that's wrong. Alex is saying
So if
line three. No, not line three. So I'm in your to do view tasks.html,
yeah.
and it is definitely on my screen. The issue that I'm pretty sure is the problem. And it is why it's not throwing an error either, because there's nothing in here that would throw an error for you. It's just not going to work. Well, actually, not that it's not going to work. Think about what output we are getting. We're getting this. We're getting the no task found, right?
Yeah.
So that means that what's happening here? It means that it's reading through this page like it's supposed to. It goes to this page like we expect it to. After we hit update, it redirects. So that redirect is working. The create view that we made is working the way we expect it to. We're coming back to this place, but it's skipping this piece of logic, right? It's saying that this is not true because it's hitting our else condition. It's getting this each time, which is not expected. We do expect it we expect this to be true, but it isn't. So why isn't it true?
Uh,
Why is this logic not entering? Because again, if it checks this condition, it's reading this part. It's going to this page. We know it's going to this page because everything else on this page loads, right? So it's doing the sequential control structure of reading top to bottom, left to right, fast as it can. It's getting to line 7 and saying, I'm going to check this condition. It's saying, nope, that condition isn't true. And it's moving on to else. So why? This again, I've highlighted this is where the problem is. It's on line 7 right here. This is it.
if tasks.
Do you see it, Alex? No, 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 no. It's a real, just obnoxiously simple misspelling, man. You capitalize tasks, it's supposed to be lowercase. So,
Really?
yep, it's recognizing. I can almost guarantee that because in the view, so like this, that is referencing here. It said if tasks, this tasks item is. I'm gonna go back to your to do level views. In our view tasks view, we sent this thing and we called it tasks, lowercase, right? So you have a choice here to fix this. What you can do is you can either change this in your views to make this capital T tasks, because this label is arbitrary. It doesn't really matter what this is. You could make it capital, or you could change it in your template. Sorry, to do templates, to do what I would recommend you do, but this is again your choice because they just have to match. I would recommend you change this to lowercase so that it matches what you have in your views.py. But they just have to match. That's why this isn't working, is because this thing, it is working right. It's saying that this isn't true because there is no tasks. That's not being passed in your context object, so it doesn't exist. So this is coming back as false. So this logic is working fine. This is a logic error. It's not a syntax error.
Yeah. Yeah.
So try changing that to lowercase t, and then that should do you.
Man, that's wild.
I know, dude. It's always some little stupid thing, and that's the thing. Is like, you'll be so focused on like the complex nature of all this, and then it's something dumb like a period or a comma or an S. Like you saw the problem with Mike So, man. His problem was he didn't have an S where it was supposed to be. It said model instead of models. That's
Yeah.
literally, man. I'm surprised I haven't made that mistake 12 times. Like that's literally every
The-
class is like that, dude. So that's the thing. It's not just you. It's how it goes.
So no lie, I made that change, and as
Yeah.
soon as I went to my task site, like all the tasks that we put in showed up.
Just popped up, right? Yeah. I
Yeah,
see.
yeah. So they were going into the
Boom.
database.
Yep. Yep. There we go.
They didn't pop up.
Yep. And it's all because that
Yeah,
one letter, that one character, it was capital instead of not. Because again, computers are so dumb, dude. It's like, nope, none of those. It doesn't know that tasks and tasks are the same thing because it can't read it. It doesn't know. So
yeah, yeah. That's wild.
nice. All right, man. I'm gonna stop the recording then.
Mhm.
And